The restaurant was silent, so silent that you could hear the clink of a single spoon against porcelain. A young waitress stood frozen, her tray trembling in her hands. Across the table sat a man in an expensive suit, his voice sharp enough to slice through her dignity. "Serve me in English, and I'll pay you $1,000, he sneered loud enough for everyone to hear. The room chuckled, but the girl's eyes didn't waver. She took a breath, lifted her chin, and when she opened her mouth, the next word silenced the entire place. If you're new here, welcome to Whispers of Kindness, where stories of compassion, courage, and redemption come alive. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you believe kindness can still change the world. The story began in a small seaside town, a place where the smell of salt and tea blended in the morning air, where fishermen shouted greetings across the docks, and where dreams often drowned before they could set sail. Among those dreams was Amara, a 24-year-old waitress at a modest restaurant called the Silver Spoon. She worked the early shifts, tired but graceful, her eyes holding a quiet fire that most failed to notice. To the customers, she was simply the girl who brings the coffee. But behind that gentle smile was a story stitched with loss, perseverance, and the kind of silent strength that doesn't demand attention. It earns it. Amara had grown up in a poor household. Her father, once a schoolteacher, had lost his job when the school closed down. Her mother fell ill, leaving Amara to care for her two younger brothers. Dreams of university faded when life demanded bread instead of books. But she never gave up on learning. Each night, after her shifts, she studied languages through old library books and worn-out tapes. She had a fascination for words, how they could build bridges across oceans and hearts. She learned quietly, in the corners of borrowed time, English, French, Spanish, Arabic, and Mandarin. To her, language wasn't just speech, it was empathy, the art of understanding another's soul. But none of that showed on the surface. To most, she was just a tired girl in a faded apron. One evening, the Silver Spoon was unusually crowded. Word had spread that a wealthy businessman, Mr. Harris, had chosen to dine there, an odd choice for someone used to luxury. He was known for his arrogance, the kind of man who treated people like glassware, useful but breakable. He arrived with a team of associates and an ego that filled the room before he did. Amara was assigned to his table. She approached with her usual calmness, though his cold eyes instantly scanned her from head to toe. "You speak English?" he asked bluntly. Amara hesitated, nodding softly. "Good," he said, smirking, "because I don't like to be served by people who can't even say thank you in English." His companions laughed. She remained composed. "Of course, sir. What would you like to order?" But he wasn't done humiliating her. "Tell you what," he said, pulling a $100 bill from his wallet and flicking it onto the table. "If you can hold a proper conversation with me in English, I'll pay you $1,000. Deal?" The restaurant went silent. A few customers turned to watch, expecting her to blush and walk away. But Amara didn't. She placed the tray down gently and looked him in the eye. "Sure," she said softly, her accent delicate but confident. "Let's talk." He smirked, thinking he'd have some fun at her expense. At first, he asked trivial questions. Her name, where she was from, how long she'd been working there. She answered each one calmly, her grammar flawless, her tone polite yet steady. A flicker of surprise crossed his face. He tried harder, asking about literature, travel, business. Her responses grew more eloquent, her vocabulary sharper. By the fifth question, his arrogance began to crumble. Then Amara smiled faintly. "Would you like me to serve your dessert in English or French?" He blinked, unsure if he heard right. Before he could respond, she continued, her words melting seamlessly into fluent French, soft and lyrical. "Ou peut-être en espagnol, si vous préférez? Or perhaps in Spanish, if you prefer?" The table went still. She switched to Spanish, then Arabic, then Mandarin, each sentence spoken with the precision and beauty of a native speaker. Gasps filled the room. Even the kitchen staff peeked through the doors. Mr. Harris's smirk vanished completely. His face reddened as his companions whispered among themselves. Amara simply stood there, calm and radiant, her voice smooth as silk. "I didn't learn these languages to impress anyone," she said softly. "I learned them because I wanted to serve the world, not just a table." The line hit him like thunder. He looked down, ashamed, fumbling for his wallet, but she shook her head. I don't need your $1,000, sir, she said gently. Respect is worth more than money. Word of that moment spread like wildfire. Someone had filmed it discreetly on their phone. Within hours, the video went viral, a humble waitress teaching a millionaire what true value looked like. Days later, reporters came to interview her. Universities offered her scholarships, and when a major translation firm saw her video, they invited her to join their team. For the first time, Amara stepped out of the silver spoon with her head held high, not as a waitress, but as a multilingual professional ready to serve the world in ways that truly mattered. And Mr. Harris? He came back a week later, not in arrogance, but in humility. He waited until her shift ended, holding a bouquet and a letter of apology. He told her that her words had changed him, that he'd started funding a scholarship for underprivileged students who wanted to learn languages. Amara smiled, accepting his apology with grace. That's the power of words, she said. They can wound, or they can heal. Before we move to the final message, if this story touched your heart, don't forget to support Whispers of Kindness by liking this video, sharing it with someone who needs hope, and subscribing for more stories that remind us what humanity truly means. Months later, Amara stood at the airport, a new chapter of her life waiting just beyond the gates. She was flying to Geneva for her new job, representing her country at an international translation conference. As she looked out the window, watching the sunrise paint the sky gold, she whispered a quiet prayer for everyone who had once looked down on her. Because she knew now, life always gives you a moment to rise, to prove that worth isn't in wealth, accent, or attire. It's in the courage to keep learning when no one's watching, to stay kind when the world tests your dignity. Her story became a symbol, a whisper that turned into a roar across hearts and screens, and somewhere in the distance, the sea breeze carried her words, soft but unshakable. Never underestimate the quiet ones. They're often the ones writing tomorrow's history.